Good morning, traders. Chris Bus here with Traders Profit Compass with another edition of Before the Bell, your home for actionable pre-market content. It is 6:42 a.m. on Monday, April 4th as I'm starting the video. And as always, please run your player at 1.5x. Taking a quick look at futures, Bitcoin down about 1%. Equities leaning green, but marginally so. I think copper was up about 1% as well. Not much happening on the macro front today. We've got some factory orders. We've got a couple of Fed speakers. And what's really on the docket and what everybody's going to be looking towards is Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. We've got the FOMC minutes, which may shed light on what their thinking is on inflation and what they want to try and do, etc. Nothing much happening on the earnings front. I do have the calendar posted on the blog site. You're welcome to look at that. Pretty thin this week. If you wanted to get further, drill down further on the different earnings, you can always go to earningswhispers.com. One thing I did see this morning is that Starbucks is suspending their buyback program. It hasn't hit the stock that bad. I mean, I think it's down a couple bucks, but that's something to pay attention to if you wanted to put that name, if you're interested in trading it, put it into your montage and keep an eye on it today, see what happens. Okay, let's dive into the charts. There's a bunch of stuff I want to show you after we get through our regular lineup of indexes and FANG names. And then I want to show you some stuff on housing, resources, things of that nature, gold miners, etc. So let's get into it. Here is the McClellan oscillator for the NASDAQ. Or excuse me, this is the NYMO, NYSE. Sorry about that. You can see the posture remains elevated at the top of the range. My default position when it's here is expecting it to move lower. And it has marginally. We were up here in the 65 range just a couple of days ago, and now we're 45. So it has come down a little bit. When we jump over to the NASDAQ, it's come down a little bit more, down towards 30. So keep that in mind when you're considering, piling into longs. The rubber band still remains stretched. The absolute reading is still in the upper end of the range. So, it can go higher, but just remember that rubber band is stretched. So let's move on to SPY. A lot of the pivots have not changed. Friday didn't really amount to a whole lot, technically speaking. So let's take a look at it. SPY had the big run up. We pulled back for a couple days. Actually really just settling in on the 8 EMA. You can't get too bearish with price sitting on the 8 EMA and above key support at 450. So on the daily time frame, I would be sticking with that 450 as your pivot. Same real idea on the 2-hour chart. We have rolled over from a high level on momentum. We did dip down on RSI below 50, but it hasn't resulted in a ton of damage. What I would be watching closely is 450 again on this time frame. If you wanted to zoom it down on the 30-minute chart, I think you can move your pivot up to 453. And then this morning, if you get a break above, then you can be long against 453 and then look for 456. And then if you get a breakout there, I think you can find 458 and potentially even go back to the prior highs. That might be a lot to ask today, given the Fed minutes on Wednesday may act as an overhang over the next couple days. I think those notes usually don't amount to anything, but I think in the heightened awareness of what is probably going to be a 50 bip rate hike in the first week of May has people a little bit on edge. Moving on to the Qs. Here's the run up. It died at the 618 retracement level, now has pulled back, and again, just like SPY, it's sitting on the 8 EMA here in pink, and we discussed it Friday, but just remember you've got a lot of moving average support below it. You've got the 200 coming in here, and then you've got the 50 EMA and 20 EMA cluster down below at approximately 352. So in my mind, as long as this 360 holds, then there's not a lot to worry about. And that's one of the things that I'd like you to keep in mind. When you think about the future, it's easy to see or visualize the market just rolling over and falling apart. I mean, that is a possibility, but what I want you to remember is things can't fall apart until price is below 360. And then they can't fall apart unless price loses the 200. And then price can't fall apart as long as it's above, price is above the 50 and the 20. So all along the way, when you're going on a journey, you look for signs on the side of the road. Kind of, are you going in the right direction? What are you seeing as your journey proceeds? And if you start checking off boxes that price is making lower highs and lower lows, then the downtrend has started once again. But just remember, in order for things to get really bad, they have to, go through a path, and you'll get warning signs along the way. So don't jump to a big, bearish conclusion when there isn't really all that much evidence at this point that would be the case. 2 hour, we came up. Here's your 371 where it topped out. Now it's pulled back. I think here you've got a little bit of a larger volume over price bar here at 358. I think to get some traction going, you've got a level here on the 2 hour chart at about 364. If it could break above that level, then back towards 370 in the highs. And here, you can't see it real well. I need to blow this up, but you've got a downtrend line that if price can break above and then get above this 364 type area, I think that would bode well for the Qs. Notice that PPO has curled up and put in a bull cross, and RSI bottomed out and is now heading north. So when you're looking at your indicators this morning, and any day really, when you see things curling like this, does it break above 50 and go positive? Does the momentum sharply turn higher and make a run towards the zero line back into positive territory? So these indicators can help you get confirmation on the price move. So keep those in mind as you move forward. IWM, really you can see here we've got the 200 above, and then we've got the 50 and the 20 below down here towards 204. So we've got price trapped between two relatively important levels. We've kind of beat this 210 level to death. Year-long support now becomes resistance. So today, if you're on a swing trading type time frame on the daily chart, I think you can use 206 as your pivot. When we start zooming down into the 2 hour, I think you've got a nice level here at 208, and that should be a level that rings a bell. Why? Because 208 was the top of this big trading range, and we made a dip down back into the range, which is not very bullish. I mean, it's a bearish event when you re-enter an old trading range, and now we're back up to the top of that range at 208. So if price can get a breakout above 208 today, may come back to 210 or even 212 to test these prior levels. If, however, it rolls over from here, I would expect it to come back to this 205.50 area. Before I get into the FATMAAN names, I want to welcome any new visitors to the YouTube channel. We've had a number of new subscribers lately, and I really appreciate all your guys' efforts in helping get my content out. It never goes fast enough, but I'm certainly appreciative of everybody that has joined the channel. For those of you that are new, I put a lot of time and effort into updating you with the charts. I place an emphasis on the FATMAAN names. Why? Because they are the market. They're 40% of, at least 40% of the Qs, and at least 25% of SPY. So if you get those right, you get the market right. And so I give you the levels to trade against. With time, if you stick with me, I think you'll find out that the levels are pretty darn close a lot of the time, and can really open up your mind towards focusing on execution, because that is where you're going to get paid. If that sounds good to you, please hit the subscribe button, the alarm bell. Feel free to leave me a comment, a stock or a sector that you want covered. It will be my pleasure to do that. Then jump over in the show notes where you'll find a link to the blog site where you can drop in your email address, and then you'll get all my content, morning, noon, or night, sent right to your email box. You won't have to look for it. You'll also find a link to buy me a coffee. If you do well, if you appreciate the analysis, that it's helping you, please feel free to make a donation to the channel. I'd really, really appreciate that. Keeps me motivated, keeps me knowing I'm on the right track with content that you want to see. So feel free, and I would certainly appreciate that. So let's jump into FATMAAN name. Facebook, really a nothing day on Friday. Well, it was up 1%. I think you can use 222 on the low side as a pivot, and we can call this 226 on the high side. Get a breakout above 226, you can go up and hit 230, and then even potentially break out above that level and make a run towards 235, which is the declining 50-day off the daily chart. Apple, I just mentioned a minute ago how good the levels tend to be, and you can just see in the Apple chart how well they have worked. Came down on Friday and got to the this support band, and it held like a champ and then powered out towards the close of the day. So I think today it's pretty clear. I think 175 is your pivot. If you get an entry, capturing that level from below, you can get long and then look for 177 and then 179 to the high side. And conversely, come back below 173, then you got 172 support, 170, and 169. I guess Tesla had some good news out over the weekend about their production numbers and all that kind of stuff. So may see some activity today on it. Friday was very quiet. I think 1100 is the line in the sand for both bulls and bears. If bears can keep it under 1100, they've got a chance to roll it down and fill this gap and come back to this high volume over price bar. But if they can't, and the bulls make a little run here and take out 1100, I think it'll find 1200 very quickly. And let me just show you that trading range again. This is why I say that. 1100 is the midpoint of this prior $200 trading range. You break above 1100, I think it's going to go like a beeline up to the 1200 mark. So I think that would be a really nice entry. One for you to alarm this morning. Like I said, I don't have it up on the screen. It may be above 1100 right now. So be careful on that open. If we have a gap below, that they don't come back and try and flash fill that. But if they did, say we opened up at, 1125, and there was a gap below, they bring it down, fill the gap, and then your entry is crossing back above 1100. You can get long there and then look for a run up to 1200. Microsoft, use 310 as your pivot. I think on a break above 310, you can look for 315. And then if it gets rejected there, then 305, remember, is the most important line for me on the chart, because it goes back to the main breakout level that started this whole thing way back when, back in October. So 305 is a really key level. So right here in the middle, again, we're just sitting on the 8 EMA here. So, I mean, by all measures, that's bullish so far. You just don't want to drop below 305. Amazon spent a lot of time on this line, and I did adjust this support line from last week. I've got it in here at about 32.60. You can see all the hours of trading where it didn't break below. So I tweaked that level a little bit. Your first support below that is the 200 at 32.33. So you can make a little mark on your chart at that level as well. As long as you stay above the 200, I think the bulls are still in charge. Google up about 0.8. I think you just stay long against 27.80. I think that's the right level. As long as you're above, you've got an opportunity for a run up to 28.40 and potentially break out there. Or if you roll over, if price rolls over, then you've got a level here at 27.50 and then 27.10 as potential support areas. Netflix didn't do anything. I think you're still right here at 375. As I mentioned last week, I'm not going to do anything with Netflix on the long side until it can take out 410, 408. which is the declining 50 right here. And then if that happens, you've got almost a free run up to the bottom of the gap. And then at that point, I would think it would go ahead and fill the gap, come up and touch the 200. Then there would be, a decision point right there. But as long as it stays below this big volume over price bar, I think you've got, resistance is resistance until and unless it's broken. So as long as it's below 400, then your default position is bearish until it can prove otherwise. Semiconductors has had a rough few days from the highs down here to 262. We filled the gap on Friday. You can see it here. I will remove that in future videos. But as it stands now, I think you want to set an alarm on 262, regardless of whether you're bullish or bearish, or if you're even trading it. Why? Semiconductors are an offensive sector, and if you see the Qs marginally green, and then you get that alarm going off on SMH at 362, breaking below, number one, I think you've got a trade there below 362, coming back towards 256. I mean, that's $6 right there. But I think if SMH rolls over and breaks 262, then you've got to be thinking about any kind of long positioning you have in the Qs, because you want them both to be in gear. You want FATMAN going higher. You want an offensive sector like SMH going higher. And if you got one rolling over that is that important, it may start moving into the bigger names. So I would use 266 as your pivot this morning. You break above, I think you can get to 270. And remember, that 270 is a really important pivot on the daily chart. Now I want to get into just a few ETFs to wrap up. XRT is the equal weighted retail ETF, pressing what looks like the bottom of a bear flag. I think if you break 75, you're going to come down to 72 almost immediately, and then we will be in a position to test the February lows. ITB is the home builder index. You can see that we're trading already below the February lows, so the door is open there for for lower prices. And on the blog site, I've also got posted XHB, which has a lot of the ancillary industries around housing. I mean, it's got a lot of building materials stocks. It's also got Home Depot and Lowe's. And if you look at Home Depot, not looking all that great. So just remember the distinction between XHB, which is, I know they call it housing index, but it's really got, home improvement, a lot of the materials suppliers. When you get to ITB, those are exclusively home builders, Pulte, Lennar, D.R. Horton, KB Homes, names like that. And again, even if you're not trading those, the retail names and the home builders, they're really important in the economy. I mean, if retail falls apart and home building falls apart, I mean that's a big chunk of the economy. Wanted you to take note of the VALE weekly breakout we got on last week. Really strong week, up almost 5%. I want to try and show you the monthly chart, which is, I mean, for a technician, kind of exciting stuff. It's not often you see a stock, challenging all-time highs that happened, 10, 12, 15 years ago. But we're right there. Even if you've never traded VALE, which is an iron ore company out of Brazil, even if you've never traded it, set your alarm at 21 and be ready to go. Because once it breaks above, then you can be long against all this support. And I think that would be a great place to be. Let me just give you the other iron ore names. BHP, Rio, RIO, Cliffs, CLF. Those are the big ones. I also wanted to take note, you guys to take note of this COPX. This is a copper miner ETF that aggregates all the global copper miners. And so this too is breaking out and making a run towards all-time highs. So let me show you the monthly, if I have it. You can see here the highs go back to the top of the prior commodity cycle back in 2011. So a break above 48 puts you in blue sky. So again, even if you've never traded copper miners, I would have an alarm there at 48. And what's really interesting about this is that copper, the metal, has been stuck. It hasn't really gone anywhere. It's been consolidating the last few months, but the copper equities have been doing really well. A couple tickers for you: Freeport-McMoRan, FCX, Southern Copper, SCCO, Tech Resources, TECK. Those are all copper miners. But also what you may want to do is look at Chile, ECH. They're like the Saudi Arabia of copper and lithium and a lot of basic materials. Oh, also SQM. That is the Chilean super duper miner, SQM. I think you'll find them at or near all-time highs. GDX, the gold miners. We had this triangle forming. We broke out a couple months ago. We made a run up towards 39 where it got turned away, and now we're back above it. So while it's above 39, I think there's a good chance to make a run towards 44 at this prior high. Now, I had a spread on, as you know. I had a 35-39 spread that was, close to being maxed out, expiring in 2 weeks. So I took that off Friday. Probably should have gotten back in a position. I will probably do that today, looking farther out in time. One thing that's been frustrating, because I got hung out to dry on gold, the metal, GLD. that's been a frustrating trade, but the miners have kind of made up for it. And what I wanted to show you are these price relative charts. And this is something I always like to take a look at. You see here, this ratio plots the miners to the metal, and you can see that we got a breakout early in the year. So when this chart is rising, the miners are outperforming the metal. And so as long as that relationship holds, you're better off in the miners. Now, it's not always like that, because sometimes the metal outperforms the miners. So you always want to take a look at that. Also, down here we've got the gold miners versus SPY, and similar to this look, we've got a breakout in performance. So right now, what this tells you, that since early 2022, the gold miners are outperforming the SPY index. So again, that is a nice confirmation that you want to be in gold miners. I wanted to show you Brazil to make a point that if you look around the world, all the countries that are resource intensive are doing really, really well and have been benefiting from this resource cycle. And if you look at Brazil, I mean, it's been a rocket ship. And it's not just the commodities. I mean, Brazil has, their big ag producers, corn, soy, coffee, orange juice, those kind of things. They beef, they've got oil, they've got iron ore. So they've got the drop on a lot of these ag commodities. But if you go and look for Brazilian names, the Brazilian banks, one of them is B as in boy, BBD, B as in boy, B as in boy, dog, BBD. The Brazilian banks are running. Really, anything related to Brazil is doing really, really well. And then you go around the globe and look at the other charts. Chile, Mexico, you got an ETF called ILF. It's the Latin American 40. So the 40 biggest companies in South America. That's rocking. Mexico, Colombia. The ETF for Colombia is GXG. And on the blog today, I've actually dropped in the chart for Colombia. Take a note on it. But also Australia, big iron ore producer. Canada, obviously oil producing country. And so I think looking around the globe is going to be a good place to find some alpha. And if you look at a lot of those charts, you've got some objective levels either coming up or nearby, having just broken out recently, where you can still get an objective long. Also, keep an eye on the ARC complex. I think those do such a great job of, is it risk on, risk off? Are people bold enough to go back in to the ultra high valuation, money losing stocks, or are they maintaining their posture and going for quality and lower volatility names? I mean, look at utilities. They're trading like biotechs because of the safety and the dividend. So keep an eye on your ARC complex. just as a measure of risk appetite, I think that would be a good use of your time. So let's wrap it up there. Please go to the website this morning. You'll find that link over in the show notes. Take a look at the blog. I'm going to post a lot of charts there that will hopefully stimulate some ideas for some trades for you either later today or later this week. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you got some good ideas out of it. And I hope you have a great day of trading. This has been Chris Buss with Traders Profit Compass. Talk to you next time.